Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hello, Fearless Freedom family. Today, we have a guest who is doing some pretty amazing things for women in business. And her name is Jacqueline Twillie. She holds an MBA in leadership and is the founder and president of ZeroGap.co. So this is a global training company that does training and development and specializes in women's leadership, particularly within male-dominated industries. So, Jacqueline, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and all the amazing things that you're currently doing?
Yes, thank you so much, Charmaine, for having me on to be a guest on the podcast. Very excited to join you all today. So, more about me beyond the bio. You mentioned that I'm the founder of ZeroGap.co, and we work with women in male-dominated industries to enhance their leadership profiles so that they can lead organizations more effectively. And in addition to that, I'm a best-selling author.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. The first book is called Navigating the Career Jungle, and you can find it anywhere you find books. I'm an auntie. I love lattes. And if you go to YouTube and you type in my name, Jacqueline Twillie, you will probably see my skydiving video. So I know we're talking about fear today. And for most people, skydiving can be a bit fearful. So that's something that I tapped into a few years ago, and it was just an amazing experience.
All right. So there's a couple of things there that we would like to definitely hear a lot more about. Do you mind digging a little deeper into that whole, how you came about trying skydiving, and then ultimately how you ended up having it videotaped to make it public on YouTube?
Yeah, so leading up to the years before my 30th birthday, I was just very intentional about the things that I was doing and the path that I wanted to take in life. And there were two things that growing up, I never thought of doing. That in my adulthood, I was exposed to friends who were doing cool things like skydiving every summer in different parts of the world or going skiing. So I decided I'm going to go skiing and I'm going to skydive before my 30th birthday because, again, growing up, I had never been exposed to those things. So when I told my immediate friend group the skydiving, nobody wanted to do it with me. So I ended up booking the skydive, and it was so cloudy. I don't know if anyone who's listening to this has ever had that experience, but when you get ready to go, you sign all of these waivers, you watch these scary videos. They're like, hey, if you die, you can't sue us, blah, blah, blah. Like, we know what we're doing, but it's not 100% safe. So it was a little creepy, but I determined that I was going to do it. So I signed all of my life away pretty much, watch the creepy videos, and then we wait for the clouds to clear, and the clouds never cleared. So I ended up going home that day without being able to skydive. And when I got home to Atlanta, Georgia, it started just a beautiful day. The clouds were out. And I was just like, okay, cool. I didn't get to do it. I mean, no clouds were in Atlanta, but they were in North Georgia. So someone hit my car. So I was in an accident. And I was like, you know what? I'm good. Because if I had to have an accident today, I would rather it be on the ground than in the air.
That's the truth. That is so true.
So fast forward a few months later, when my schedule allowed and I had a free day, I drove back up. I was able to skydive, and I said, if I'm doing this experience, and they offered, it's like $200 to have it videotaped, because a person has to jump with you in addition to your instructor to capture it on video. So I just paid the extra money because, why not? That's one of the things that I said it was my first one. I'll probably do it again at some point, but to have it on videotape to remember those moments because you're going, I think, like 170 miles an hour flying down. It doesn't feel that fast when you're coming down, but
Okay.
just to be able to relive that moment, because it does happen quickly, it was amazing.
Wow. So was there someone were you tandem diving at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All
So
right.
when we jumped, I asked my instructor, the tandem instructor, do you do this for a living? And he goes, oh no, I'm a landscaper for a living. I was like, oh Lord, let me just have fun.
Why did I ask that question, right?
Right.
Okay. But I mean, for them to be, even if the person is not doing it for a living and this is their hobby, they have to have a certain amount of dives before they can tandem with someone. So
Exactly.
that part is reassuring, at least. Yeah, it's funny because I have a colleague that is his passion as his significant other as well. I mean, they've done like thousands of dives to the point where they've actually done some Guinness Book of World Records pattern dives. So where a bunch of people like jump out of different planes and then they start holding hands in a pattern. And so I always ask him like, oh my gosh, why would you jump out of a perfectly good plane? But, as you said, it is definitely something that will test you as far as facing a fear, right? Because I mean, you're now taking from sure ground, you're going from sure ground and then you're going into unsure ground because you are jumping out of a plane at a high altitude. And then you are putting trust in the fact that the chute is gonna, deploy. So, yeah.
Yep.
How did you feel afterwards, after the dive was done?
It was great. It was a wonderful experience. Like I said, I had many months to prepare for the actual jump because the first time I couldn't. So, just to be able to see the earth from a different view. Most of the time we view earth from the place where we stand, or if we're at the top of a skyscraper, we get that view. So it was an amazing experience. Like I said, I would definitely do it again, but I'm glad I captured that moment on video.
Awesome. And then thank you for sharing it with us, because now we can watch it and see how that was for you and live vicariously through you that experience. So would you say that you could liken that particular experience and that way in which you faced fear to anything else that you're currently dealing with?
Not anything that I'm currently dealing with. I do subscribe to the motto, faith over fear. So whenever there is a moment where, something is fearful, I've built that muscle now where my faith automatically goes into action whenever I have fear. So it's not like I struggle with it that much in terms of like in action. Fear doesn't drive in action for me because I know that as long as I keep moving, I'm either going to learn or I'll grow, and sometimes both. So in terms of that direct experience, one of the things that I took away from it is this: you have to be able to go against the grain. If it's something that you want to do, nobody did it with me. No one wanted to go with me. I know people who wouldn't have taken that experience because they had to do it alone.
Right.
And I've never been afraid to do anything alone. I've never been afraid to stand out. And so in terms of like actual, how do I translate to people who are fearful of doing things for themselves? It's baby steps. You do the things that you can manage by yourself, and then you work your way up to doing more things alone. So for instance, I enjoy eating out at restaurants alone.
Okay.
So for some people, they are mortified when they hear that that's something I like to do. So what I told them is, go to Starbucks and have a coffee by yourself. That is legit eating out alone. And once you're able to do that and you're like, oh, it's not that bad, not that big of a deal, then I'll say, okay, now go to Chipotle and have Chipotle alone. Okay. So now you're elevating your experience. And then it's like, okay, if you could do that, now go to a Chili's or On the Border or, some chain restaurant, sit down. And so each time you're upgrading your level of experience, you're going into more formal settings of exiting your comfort zone.
Right.
And that's the core of how I tell people to really overcome these challenges of fear, is start with the baby step, the thing that you could start off doing, and then that builds your muscle.
Wow. No, that's some great advice. So I can I can totally see how this can translate to being a woman in business. And can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how do you advise your clients? Because your avatar is a woman who is in a male dominant climate, correct?
So yes, let me take a step back. So Zero Gap was founded a few years ago out of the need to help women to succeed in male dominated industries. So
Okay.
when we founded this company, I had previously been doing career coaching and speaking at conferences. And of course, you know, I shared with you all, I had written a best-selling book. So a lot of the speaking engagements was a result of that. But my passion, and it was then and it still is now, and probably will forever be based on the data, is to eliminate the gender wage gap. So in eliminating the gender wage gap, I do that in two ways. Personally, I teach women how to negotiate so that they don't leave any money on the table. And so my upcoming book that's coming out is called Don't Leave Money on the Table.
Okay.
And it's all negotiation strategies for women. Now, on the flip side of that, when we look at the wage gap, we see that people at the top of organizations get paid the most. And it's no surprise that men are the heads of most organizations in the US and around the world. So my client base for Zero Gap, we service clients all over the world. And what we do is we help women to get into leadership roles, to succeed, and to go to even greater roles. Because currently in the US, women CEOs on the Fortune 500 list are less than 5% of the CEOs. And if we're ever going to really move the needle on the wage gap, we have to move it in the skilled labor force as well as the leadership labor force. So the way we focus on women in male-dominated industries, which is almost every industry,
Right.
is to really target the area where we see the most need and where we can make the biggest impact. So going back to your question about how we service women is sometimes it's not about fear. Sometimes they're very confident and they're competent in their work, but there are different layers to leading an organization when you have, you know, changing market environments, technology throws a wrench, the economy throws a wrench, and then on top of all of that, you have people who will challenge you based on your gender or based on your race. And so those are the things that we focus on with Zero Gap.
Okay. The reason why I brought that up is because, so, you know, my profession is male dominated. And so there are some unique issues that come into play for women, you know, in the field of medicine. And so a lot of times there can be some fear associated with, you know, kind of standing up and making your voice be heard when the majority of the ears are male. Because there's always that question as to whether, not that you're not capable, because, you know, to get this far, you're capable, but it's just that, you know, will this be received? Will this be acted upon? You know, like all these things that can play a role in engendering fear when it really shouldn't, because you know, we're pretty much on the same page. We had the same training, we have the same level of intelligence. There's really no reason why we cannot negotiate and get, you know, equity in our compensation. So this is the reason why I asked that question, because it's a huge deal in medicine currently. And so, and I know that it's not just medicine that is experiencing this particular issue, because I saw an article come through today on LinkedIn. It's actually a video from the World Economic Foundation, and it was just talking about the fact that there really are only 6 countries in the entire world that work towards making sure that the system pays men and women equally for the same job, which is horrible. You know, it's just like, how is that even a thing? So clearly there is a need for Zero Gap. You know, so I was wondering if, you know, how much fear played a role in, you know, in that. But it sounds like not so much fear, but just kind of navigating the system and figuring out ways in which to try to get the standing that you deserve and that you should get as a female.
Yeah, so before we started recording, you and I were talking about some of the series that I posted on LinkedIn. And part of that is we did one of our core programs with Zero Gap is Risk, Resilience, and Reward. And so within that, we do cover how the key components of taking a risk, because we know risk leads to reward,
Right.
is overcoming any fears that will come up with taking a risk. So as a leader, the bolder the risk, the higher the probability that you could either win really big or you could lose your job, depending on how much money you lose in an organization. Right. So we did talk about fear in that aspect, but it's not the aspect that related to competency at all. So yeah, but that is one area that we talked about in the video series. And that's just a small component of the training programs that we put on to help women go through this. So let's see, we're in March. So in February, I traveled to Australia, and the workshop that I put on there was called Failure Time. And so inside of Failure Time, one of the components that I really underscore is going back to basics of when failure is expected and it is accepted. So if you think about riding a bicycle, everyone knows that when a kid gets on the bicycle for the first time, or an adult gets on the bicycle for a very first time, that it's expected that they're going to fall off, and it's going to take them a couple of tries before they get their balance. Right. In that respect, failure is both accepted and it's expected. So we have to take that mentality into our professional lives as well, to help us to overcome any roadblocks that might be preventing us from becoming effective.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting too, because, you know, if you ever start a business, or if you ever consider starting a business, one of the biggest things that is said is that you cannot really be afraid to fail, because, to be honest, you know, it's not really a failure. It's more like a learning experience. So every time that something falls through, or that something doesn't necessarily work out the way that it is intended to work out, that doesn't mean that the business is not going to be successful in the end. It just means that perhaps that's not the pathway that you need to take, and maybe you need to go back and just kind of reassess the situation and then come up with a different plan. So, but yeah, no, it's just the bicycle analogy is so true, because we do expect to fail at that. But then we also know that, you know, you fail enough times at that, technically failing forward, you're going to end up, you know, being able to ride the bike and being able to do all these things that, you know, while you're doing it unconsciously. Wow. Yeah, no, that's cool. So how was the trip overall? Kind of saw some highlights of it online.
Yeah,
you're having fun.
Yeah, it was great. So, of course, if you follow me online, you saw that I traveled with a sprained ankle throughout. So that was an interesting element of the trip, but it was beautiful. It's such a beautiful country. I cannot wait to go back and spend more time there. And the results, the feedback from our training session has been absolutely astounding. Getting the emails of how people are taking the deep dive from that Failure Time session and implementing it into their work and personal lives. So thank you for asking. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Sounds like it was phenomenal. I mean, the locale alone is enough to make it great. So, and the content sounds like it was definitely invaluable content. Awesome. So you have a lot of experience working with lots of different kinds of people. Is there anything or is there any one gem that you wish to share to help someone who perhaps is having some fear in taking that step forward? Is there any one gem that you would impart? You think that would be helpful to them?
So just generally speaking, one of the things that I will tell you is that it is a muscle overcoming fear. Just like when you go to the gym, you're not going to be able to lift 20 pounds out of the gate, but you will be able to lift 20 pounds if you start off small and you consistently work towards it. So anything that you're staring at and it's a big fear, think about going to the gym, okay? So pick up the small weight first. You got to get to the gym. That's the biggest part. And then you start with the small weights. And then as you increase your capacity to your muscle strength and you go to higher weights, you're probably going to seek someone with expert advice along the way who's going to help you not to hurt yourself and strain your muscles and become injured. So in that same way, that very basic thing that we all accept about going to a gym and building the muscle, you got to do that in your professional life too. No matter what industry you work in, or even if this sphere is personal, start off small, do what you can to get started with what you have. So you don't need a lot of money, you don't need access, you don't need network. Do what you can with what you have. And then as you start to build that muscle, then you seek the appropriate resources to help you strengthen that, so that metaphorically you can lift that 20-pound weight.
Awesome. That's some good advice, girl. Appreciate that. Oh my goodness. All right. So it sounds like you have a lot going on over there. Because I know that you had to be removed from your office, the usual office space. So hopefully that will be rectified very shortly. Because I know there's like some buzzing in the background I can hear.
So I had to come outside of the building so that we could have a conversation without the pest control bumping around, but it's still a little noise out here. So hopefully it's not distracting to anyone.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So, is there any particular passion project or a particular project that you'd like to have the audience know about that you're currently active with? Keeping in mind that the majority of the audience is going to be professional women, pretty much from all walks of life.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just put in the connection request that you listen to this podcast. I'm more than happy to connect with you there. Or you can follow JacquelineTwillie.com, because that's where anything that I'm working on, any new projects or initiatives, they will be announced through that platform. And the company's website is zerogap.co. So zero gap, no spaces, and instead of .com, it's just .co. And if you're interested in any of the professional development, learning experiences, or you'd like to have us come to your company for the employee resource group trainings that you experience, that's the way that you connect to us from there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. As I think that there are definitely people who are listening who are looking for something like that. So I think that'd be very helpful for them to check you out and utilize your services. Great.
And one more thing, I almost forgot to say this.
Okay.
We are doing our next Women in Leadership retreat. It's either going to be in Italy or France. We are closing the poll this week, actually today on Twitter. So if you go to Zero Gap on Twitter, you'll be able to help us select our location. We have been meeting with our vendors and our event organizer, and we are down to 2 phenomenal locations. But as a team, we were split, so we decided to take it to Twitter to do the tiebreaker. Okay. So in that leadership experience, we're going to do a little bit of wellness, a little bit of recharge, down wide, and we're also going to talk candidly over dinner conversations, as well as 2 workshops over the retreat about how we can level up the skills to become even more effective leaders. And so the women who are selected have to apply, and the women who are selected to be a part of that, then we'll do quarterly Zoom calls where we stay connected with each other, and we'll focus on a specific skills topic for up to 12 months after that program. So I did want to make sure I threw that out there.
No, that's good. That's a gem. That should definitely be out there. And so any more details, like what's the cost of it, or like, well, what kind of things are you looking for in the application?
Yeah, so if you go to zerogap.co, the application link is on every page. It's free to apply to attend. It is a limited number of people who will be there. The cost is right under $10,000 for the week, and that includes your hotel and your meals, as well as all of the activities on the agenda. And so to apply, you have to be currently in a leadership role. So we do work with emerging leaders at Zero Gap, but this retreat is specifically for someone who is already in a leadership role, be it manager, director, or VP level.
Awesome. No, that's great. That is great. We'll definitely make sure that's also in the show notes as well. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that's going to be really helpful to our audience. On this podcast, we talk about fear. We talk about emerging victoriously from fear. And then the last thing that we usually do to kind of wrap up our conversation is we do a fill in the blank. Okay. So are you up for that?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right, cool. All right, so the first one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
To me, fearless freedom means putting faith over fear every single time.
Okay, all right. And then if I am fearless, I will.
If I'm fearless, I will walk in the purpose that is planned for my life.
Okay. And then last but definitely not least, my battle cry is.
So I'm going to go back to the mission for my life, which is to eliminate the gender wage gap. So
Okay.
that might be a little slant on the battle cry, but everything I do goes right back to that.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. That is amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day and working with us to have this conversation. I know that I appreciate it, and the audience greatly will appreciate it as well. And, I appreciate you taking time off for us because we appreciate you. All right. So I hope that you continue to do that great work, lady.
Well, thanks again for having me, Charmaine, and to the podcast community. Thanks to you all for listening to this episode, because I know you have so many options when it comes to podcasting. So thanks for being a part of Charmaine's tribe, because what she's up to is really great, helping people to break through their fears. And so I want to hear your stories of your breakthrough of your fears. So definitely somewhere on social media, send me a message and let me know how this podcast helps you overcome your fears. And I'll make sure I loop Charmaine into that feedback as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you for joining us today on this journey. Fear is all around us. It strives to stop us from achieving our greatness. We have the tools to be overcomers. By sharing our stories, supporting each other, and doing self-reflection, we can do this. If you found value in this conversation today, please be sure to subscribe to and share this podcast with your friends. By going to your favorite podcast platform, leaving a review and a 5-star rating, you will help to get the word out about it. And that is much appreciated. Thanks again for spending time with us. I appreciate your time and your attention. It is my hope that you will punch fear in the face today, and that you will be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.